Oh, sure.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call to order the New Haven Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, June 18, 2019. The board will now reconvene to open session and close out from a report out from closed session. Moving on to Section 3.1, recommended readmission, Education Code, Section 48900. May I have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation and deny readmission to students 1 through 12?
So moved.
I'm a second.
Discussion?
None here.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. May I also have a motion and a second to accept staff recommendation and readmit students 1 and 2?
So moved.
May I
I'm a
get
second.
a second? Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. 3.2, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release, Government Code Section 54957. There is nothing to report. 3.3, update on negotiations with NHUSD, bargaining units, conference with legal counsel, Government Code Section 3549.1. There is nothing to report. Moving on to the procedural items, may I, let's please stand up for a Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda as amended? The amendment includes the addition to approve board meetings from May 14th, 22nd, and 28th. It also includes correction on the personnel action for a 0.6 FTE assistant principal, should have been 0.6 FTE teacher at Easton Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Moving on to the information items. Let's open it up for the items from the board with Member Nishihira.
Okay, I'd like to read a prepared statement. The past 3 to 4 weeks have been tough for everyone in our community, including parents, teachers, administrative staff, and especially our students. It would be hard to find anyone who has not been affected in some way. Many have felt the impact of this negotiation and strike. Our district did not get here overnight. We face long-standing complex issues related to, among other things, insufficient state revenue, unbalanced budgets, declining enrollment, increased expenditures, ineffective communication channels, and a general lack of community engagement. We suffer from years of strained relationships and a mutual lack of collaboration and trust between key stakeholder groups. While the majority of us have been on the board for only 2.5 years, this is a problem 20 years in the making. In the mid-1990s, our enrollment topped out at around 14,000 students. In tonight's adopted budget, the average daily attendance is 10,782. For years, previous boards have wallpapered over real systemic issues and have continued to spend without a clear line on how to address the revenue problem. This is what contributed to the explosive situation that we just experienced. We need to take decisive action today. We need balance in all things, from academic equity to financial prudence. The budget we're adopting tonight allocates 93.8% of our revenue for salaries and benefits in the out years. This means that 6.2% is for everything else. We have to ask why our students at CCMS do not have access to project-based learning. We must demand that students at CCMS have a makerspace, just like IVC. We have to ask why Easton has enrollment in the 900s while Hillview Crest has enrollment in the 500s. We have to be willing to ask these questions and have the courage to acknowledge and take responsibility for its answers. I understand that many in the community would have liked to engage more with the board during the strike. Please know that while I wished that we could have provided more insight into the details of the process, the board was limited by what it could have said publicly as open government laws, board governance protocols, and collective bargaining laws played heavily in what could be said during that time. Unfortunately, not all trustees shared this understanding of our established role, and one trustee took the situation as an opportunity for political grandstanding. From the many emails, phone calls, and personal and in-person exchanges, I have received a clear signal that our parents and stakeholders are passionate, smart, and want the best for our students. I was inspired at the level of analysis, passion, critical thinking, subject matter expertise, and creativity that all of you have displayed. Great partners like you will help us propel our district into the next level. We must now all work together to channel this momentum. Our community deserves nothing less, and you have my personal commitment to provide that leadership to make that possible. Many in our community are wounded. Words cannot be unspoken. Cold shoulders are not soon forgotten. One of the most important things that we can do now is to find a way to start the healing process. The first step is to establish truthful conversation. Now that the strike is behind us, I will encourage the board to schedule a series of special sessions where we will provide the public a forum to engage directly with the board. The key objective of these meetings is for us all to reach common ground for the community to hear insights from our trustees. I'm not sure exactly what form this could take, but I would like the board to schedule conversation meetings where we can explore ways that are in line with laws and protocols. If it's the pleasure of the board, I would like to agendize a study session in the next month or two for this purpose. We all know that having a strong school district is vital to our community. Our goal is to ensure that New Haven Unified School District is fiscally stable with rigorous academics and attractive extracurricular programs where all of our children can learn, grow, and succeed. Our teachers should continue to be the highest paid in Alameda County and the most respected in their field
Let him finish, please. Go ahead, Mr.
The highest paid in Alameda County and the most respected in their field, and for that we will be proud. We will continue to be proud. As always, it's my privilege to serve you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Member Nishihara. Mr. Wang, please.
Yes, we in the last 3 weeks, and we have 3 weeks the strikes, and finally it's be settled. I would like to thanks for the teachers and the union members in the negotiated teams, administrative, and thanks for them cooperating together. Finally, get the contract done. The strike was a very bad thing, and for the community, almost everybody be affected. Okay, and now we should hearing and quickly. I will encourage everybody. We should not point to anybody. There's no reason to point the fingers to blame anyone. Okay, there's no winning parties. And during the strike, and we saw the communities, especially parents, they come out, gave lots of suggestions, and show their interest in engaging for school district. I'm very appreciate that. And we will continue to listen to the community and do our job better. To maintain I just want the community to know the main purpose of the board member is to be accountable to the public and maintain the budget. That's a physical responsible. During the strike, the only things we should truly to say sorry is our students. They have 3 weeks out of the class. We don't know how to compensate them. Yeah. So, and I have some thinking, and we should maybe discuss with the board in the future how we can avoid this one. We definitely should restrict certain hours, have a no strict, because at that time we see the students need to do their final and graduation. It's a very bad time to do that. Okay, there's another thing I can report this one, and the May 18th, and I was represented for the reading sevens and going to the Sacramento for the CSBA Delegate Assembly. And during the meeting, we talking more about fair funding, and this also affects our school district. Until fair funding, and by the state, by the federal government, and lots of issues we cannot solve in the local level. And we should working together, yeah. And we also, during the meetings, we also brainstormed about the special educations, and we see the special education, the numbers and the cost is increased, and the funding is not enough. Yeah, there's no full funding for the special education where we do the lots of brainstorm, and we share the information with the different school district and in different regions. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. Ms. Chima?
Can I have a few minutes, please?
Sure. Let's, Member Canlis?
Thank you. I just want to share that the coalition to seek full and fair funding for all the schools in California continues to meet, and we will be working together, including Mr. Angeles, to try to get more funding for all the schools in California to make sure that we pay our teachers what they deserve and our students the programs that they need. So we continue to work on that, and I would encourage you to come and join us when we have dates to help us seek full and fair funding from the state of Sacramento, from the state of California in Sacramento in future dates. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Chima?
Okay, I'm gonna go. So, like my fellow board members, they have expressed their thoughts and experiences, so it just prompted me to write down something for now. Seeing teachers protesting while being a school board member was surreal. I'm not saying that my fellow board members are not passionate and doing the right thing, but having a background in the labor ranks myself, it affected me personally. It affected my integrity and moral values. I realized what is at stake. I did not want to shortchange our students and teachers, and I did not want to shortchange our district and community at large. I can go on and on and on. Gorilla-sized question is now, for all of us, come fall, how this strike and whole experience will impact our ADA and enrollment. For now, let's take care of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Chima. So I also have a prepared statement. I think we just have a lot of sentiments and a lot of emotions we wanted to just express today. So I also have a prepared statement that I would like to read. So I've also had a few days to reflect on what transpired in our district and community in the last few weeks. We as a community have been tested and tried during the 14 long days of strike. Characters, integrity, and responsibilities of the board and staff were questioned and smeared. Without having been in our shoes, judgment was passed. Without considering that we too are human, vilification and personal attacks were made, some right here in this boardroom, while others on social media and outside of our homes, and our families were impacted. And without understanding the effects of the difficult decisions we have to make, premature intent to recall notices were served to the newest board members. I want to thank and commend the board for staying positive, respectful, and committed in making, although unpopular, but financially prudent decisions that served in the best interest of our students. We have a moral and ethical duty to the role that we are elected into by the community, and one of those responsibilities is the physical health and effectiveness of our district. I admire the teachers' courage in coming together and advocating for themselves. We may disagree on the means, but we have a common goal and understanding of what we all want for our students. Although there was a lot of misinformation, it was surely evident that the community overwhelmingly loves and appreciates our teachers. During the strike, community was torn, respect lost, emotions ran high. From it all, we need to heal and come back as a community, come back as a stronger community. These difficult times have pushed many to dig deeper into the real issues that the district has been facing for nearly a decade. It created opportunities to hold healthy and fact-based discussions on various topics and gave rise to more engaged parents and community members, some of whom I had the opportunity to connect and learn from. This increase of new parental engagement brings solace and new direction for the district. The board has been discussing for some time to put structure in place. Is this still on? Thank you. The board has been discussing for some time to put a structure in place to bring different stakeholders and create working committees, from budget advisory committees to community engagement to improving enrollment and revenues. We have many amazing and knowledgeable parents in our community who are interested in stepping up and help. A few of us met a few parents and who have mapped, a few of us have met a parent who has mapped out the declining enrollment data on his own. And we hope to bring this individual to bring and make a presentation to the rest of the board and staff. Orlando, you too have been dragged through the mud during the past few weeks. It is unfortunate that it came just a few days before your retirement. You weathered through it to the best of your ability. There were some missed opportunities, but none of us were prepared for what was to come. It's been an honor to be part of the governing team with you. You are kind, compassionate, and a true educator at heart. I wish you a happy, healthy, and fulfilling retirement. I want to also thank the district bargaining team and the NHTA for working long hours to reach a viable agreement. I want to thank the parents for dealing with the inconvenience. I want to thank the students for handling the situation to the best of their abilities. I'm glad they were able to enjoy the year-end activities. It was wonderful to take part in the many celebrations and the graduations and finally feel like we could enjoy all the work that they have been putting for the past 12, 13 years of their lives. This is our last meeting before summer, so I wish everyone a good and healing summer. We want to work together, and we have a lot of work cut out for us, actually. So we look forward to putting all of those into action in the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can tell that some of you don't want to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I'm not going to let this last year define 44 years of service. There are a lot of people to thank. Of course, first and foremost, I'm going to thank my family. I was born into a loving, spirited, and proud family. A mother who was very encouraging, and whose words will always be the best. I want to thank this board, this one and the previous ones, Jonas Dino, Michael Ritchie, Michelle Parnala. But I publicly want to thank this board for the opportunity and confidence it has shown in me. As with any engagement that has more than one person, we didn't always agree, but those disagreements were honest disagreements with the best interest of this district at heart. Great role model. Wonderful elementary teachers I had. I had Mrs. Frazier, who reminded us to be humble, the value of humility, and that we are all expendable. I needed some luck along the way. And I grew up in a community where no matter where I went, people would look at me and say, that boy's going to be somebody. My inspiration to become a teacher came from my junior high school teachers, not to diminish teachers anywhere, but those were the most committed, most dedicated group of teachers I've ever seen. Above and beyond doesn't even begin to describe them. What they did for people in a very poor community will never go unforgotten by me. High school was a miserable experience. I got to see the other side of teachers who didn't care, teachers who didn't want us in the school, and they were uncaring for the most part, but then there was one teacher who I wanted to be like, and that was Mr. Coogan, my social studies teacher. And there was Mr. Plummer who pulled me aside and told me not to pay attention to that counselor who discouraged me from going to college. And there was Mrs. Mattern, my journalism teacher, who encouraged me and let me express my views and stood by me when I had unpopular opinions. I became a principal up here, and I was in San Jose, and I worked with students like none I've ever worked with since. I became a teacher at a school that had only 13 African American students in it, and it taught me that no matter what you do, problems are human problems, they're situations. And you can go back and say, I wanted to go back and work in Los Angeles where I grew up in, and I ended up working in a working class community that had very many black kids. But the problems were the same. And it taught me about the value of humanity. New Haven, when I came to New Haven, I thought I had inherited the keys to the castle. Even before I decided to retire, I felt like retiring from New Haven was going out on top. Some people I want to thank. Lori has been amazing. Gina, my former assistant, has been amazing. Derek, Lisa, Annette, Akur, I just can't thank you enough. I've told the new superintendent, take care of this district, but love Lori and Gina. I am who I am because people allowed me to be who I am. I said last year, every block of stone has a statue inside of it, and the task of the sculptor is to discover that statue. The sculpture is already complete within the marble block, but I had to work my way to make it happen. The rock is already there, but I've been chiseled by some marvelous people along the way. I want to tell you a story, and bear with me. I shared this with Linda Canlis earlier. When I was an assistant principal in the Central Coast, there was a young man who knew he was dying. And just before his death, he talked to the pastor. And he said, I came to grips a long time ago with the fact that I'm going to die. He said, and you have to know that this young man had an attendant who pushed him to every basketball game, every soccer game, every baseball game, every play. He was all over. And he said, I've come to grips with what's happening to me. He said, but what I get most angry about is when I see people who take what they have for granted. They're healthy, and they can do, and they don't do. He said, those are the people who I find most agitated. New Haven is a wonderful group. It's a wonderful district. And I'm going to encourage everyone here not to take this district for granted. I've been seeing districts all over the country, and I can tell you, I haven't seen one like this. Leadership to me is about service to others. It's not self-serving. It's not about demagoguery. My goal when I started teaching in 1975 was to be able to hear the words, well done, my good and faithful servant. And after 44 years, I would hope that this last month will not define 44 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Sharon,
Yes,
can I say something with regard?
sure.
Oh, since we are still on the items from the board, so I was just scribbling my thoughts, and I forgot about to say something for Orlando. And audience, please, if you can forgive us for a few moments. You know, we are all community, like Michael has said one time that we have a tough love, so all of us are together in this, but I know this is Orlando's last meeting, so I would like to share a few light kind of conversations. Orlando, thank you so much for your service, and I wish you a lot of luck in your retirement. Like you have said that these last few weeks will not define you, so you know who you are. But I would like to say that you are very professional, and you have a gentleman's manners, and you have a patience of a snail's tax attorney. You handled all employees with the softest of gloves until May 20. Well, we are over it for now. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Member Chima. Moving on to the next item on our agenda is the public comments. Are there any speakers on topic not on the agenda?
We have 5.
Okay, let's have 3 minutes for each speaker, please.
First speaker is very familiar, Wendy Godalowitz.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
we didn't see you coming.
Thank you, Andy.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm familiar because I used to work here. I'm going to turn a little bit. I used to work here, and I loved it here. So I left to be a superintendent, and when I left, it broke my heart. And I said I could retire from this district. And I even thought about coming back because I thought this is such a special place. And I'm not going to say it's not now, so I would never say that. What I'm going to say is you're pained, and I get that. When people are in pain, they act differently, and that happens. But I am his wife. I'm a former employee. I'm a mother of a teacher in the district. I'm a mother-in-law of a teacher in the district. What broke my heart also is my daughter quit, so she's not teaching anymore. And when she came home and told me that, it crushed me. But what I want to say is 44 years, I've been a superintendent, I've been an educator, and this man's better than me. And he is being defined by a moment, and I get that. But I'm going to ask you a question. I gave my teachers, over the last 2 years, 18% pay increase. Okay, 18%. They went from the bottom to the top. And does that make me a great leader? Does that make me a better person? No. When we conversed every night, he was in near tears, and he says, you know what, that's good for you. I wish we had it. And so to spend the 44 years and then to say that what I know is that he was not demonized or hated prior to this last couple months. I know that. And to take an entire man's career and to, as he's trying to speak his last words, or board members are trying to say something kind, to go after him and say, no, he has no kindness, no compassion. When you know he showed up in your classrooms, you know what he did for kids, you know that he showed up at families' funerals. I know because he wasn't home. He was not home. And he is the only educator that I have known who's as good as he is. And that comes from an educator's perspective. And you can go back in his career to every district he's been in, and that's all you're going to find. So it's not on the agenda. Yes, not on the agenda. But the sadness is the outcome of this. We can disagree. Disagreeing's okay. But to go after people is not. That's why I said I would never say anything negative about the district. Pain happens, and when people are pained, people act differently. But please just disagree. You don't need to attack him, especially on his last night. Well,
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm just saying you just don't.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael Gardner. After Michael Gardner is Angelica Canales.
Hey everybody, you know I'm going to be positive, but that's who I am. So I heard a story from a friend who made a mistake at work that cost the district $1 million. And he had a conversation with the boss, and he said, so I guess I'm fired then, right? And the boss said, heck no, we just spent $1 million on your training. And so as best as possible, I want to encourage you to see this as a very expensive and painful training experience, because that's how I see it for me. And there's another saying that I hear a lot is get better or get bitter. And so here we are, we're going into summer, and time will help some, but the saying time heals all wounds is not true. As they say in restorative justice, harm has been done. And on top of everything else that all of us are doing, we're now responsible for dealing and restoring from the harm that has been done in this district. And my main reflection, just for me personally, as the 1,000+ people in the community march to support for teachers, I'm reminded of the end of Saving Private Ryan. Spoiler for a 10-year-old movie, but I'm going to spoil it. It's Tom Hanks no, too late, it's 10 years. Tom Hanks is dying, and he says to Private Ryan, who he's saving, earn this. And I have looked at the numbers, and I know that in 2 years, I can make more money in Hayward for the rest of my career. Like, next 10 years, I can make about $30,000 more by going to Hayward. But Union City deserves the best from me. And so we all have a responsibility in this, but I feel as long as I'm in the Bay Area, I need to earn the support that this city has given to me and to teachers, and we need to be better together. Thank you.
Next speaker is Angelica Canales. After Angelica Canales is Cheryl Perez.
Thanks. Good evening. I apologize, Michael. Tomorrow I'll be better, but today I'm still a little bitter. My name is Angelica Canales. I'm a science specialist at Guy Emanuel Elementary. I'm also a site representative for NHTA, and I recently served as a picket captain in the historic 14-day strike here at New Haven Unified School District. I'm here this evening to talk about one aspect of negotiations that is especially troubling to me. That would be the commonly known Me Too clause that is written into many contracts across the district, allowing for others' salaries to be increased annually by the same percentage salary increase granted by the board to any members of the certificated/management employee unit within the district, such as, for example, any increase in COLA and one-time payment or other increase on or off the salary schedule. The Me Too clause is wrong on many different levels. First of all, it severely limits the bargaining power of NHTA when every other living, breathing entity in the district has a Me Too attached to their contracts. So many times when parents and community members were confused by the vitriol put out by the district email system, they stated, the math doesn't make sense. The amount you are asking for doesn't work out to the dollar amount they are claiming. Oh yes, that's because they forgot to mention the Me Too clause. They forgot to mention that those people sitting on the district side of the bargaining table are going to collect the same salary increase that we negotiate for ourselves. That those who had the power to negotiate and end the strike, but instead kept teachers on the streets and students out of classrooms for 3 weeks, are going to benefit from our struggle. They couldn't believe that site admin and classified staff who were cozy and comfortable in their temperature-controlled buildings collecting their paychecks for those 3 weeks that teachers were out literally in the rain, wind, heat, and cold are all going to collect the same increase that teachers fought for. That may sound dramatic, but after this experience, I am granting myself permission to be emotional. An inevitable consequence of the Me Too clause is that there is bound to be a divide between NHTA and other educators' unions within the district. After this unfortunate experience, I'm not convinced that that isn't purposeful and by design. It hasn't gone unnoticed that the district has profited off of the strike by collecting teachers' wages for 3 weeks, which they will now use to pay out all of those Me Too clauses. I've been told that we have no control over other employees' contracts and Me Too clauses. In that case, I'm here to ask those that make all the decisions to grant teachers a Me Too clause as well. When a district chief officer's salary goes from $216,199 in 2018-19 to $222,685 in 2019-20, an increase of $6,486, I'd like to raise my hand and say, me too, please. The fact that this chief officer is also going to get a 3% on schedule and 2.5% off schedule pay increase on the backs of 585 teachers is both treacherous and disgusting. When NHAA members are entitled to 1 day of fully paid sick leave for each 10 days of service, I'd like to say, me too, please. That's 21 days per year while teachers only get 10. By that same entitlement, we should receive 18 days per year. That would be super helpful, as teachers are the ones in close contact with sick children all year long. If that sounds ridiculous, it should. If NHTA is not entitled to provisions in other employees' contracts, they should not be entitled to ours.
Time,
I
please.
just don't feel that a Me Too clause has any place in anybody's contract. Each unit should have to struggle through the same fight that teachers do year after year. Being offered next to nothing, then worrying most of the school year, taking time away from family to attend countless meetings, and other actions, holding signs out on the street, begging the powers that be to recognize and value your work.
Next speaker, please.
In reality, nobody
Cheryl
should have this
Perez.
inflicted upon them, but if teachers
After
have to do
Cheryl
it,
Perez will
then
be
nobody
Darlene
else should be
Crittenden.
exempt from it.
My name is Cheryl Perez, and I'm not here this evening. Hello? There we go. My name is Cheryl Perez, and this evening I'm not here as a teacher. I'm here as the grandmother of an incoming first grader at Cyril's Elementary. I was quite disheartened when at the last board meeting an item was slipped in for approval among 25 other items without any input from the community. The item I'm referring to is 9.7, approval of the Healthy Kids instructional materials, basically the sex education. I'm not totally familiar with everything that it involves, but I have heard that it has been quite controversial not only in neighboring districts, but at the state level as well, resulting of removal of a couple of the supplemental books that are recommended. Being that this is such a sensitive topic, I think it's only prudent that you give our community an opportunity to look at the materials and provide input. As was mentioned here before, there's been concern about declining enrollment. There's also been mentioned that you want to have more input from the community. Here is an opportunity to put those words into action. I ask that you please revisit that, giving our community ample time to look over the materials and to give input and to really listen. And I also would like to second that, to please revisit the Me Too for administrators.
Next speaker is Darlene Crittenden.
14 days on the line. Where were you? Where were all of you? Where's that leadership you talked about, Lance? I knew you before you got up there. I knew you when you were just seeking the position. You said to me one time when we were looking at our health care being taken, we all need to compromise. Maybe you should consider letting them cap your health benefits. As a good act, we did it. We let them cap our benefits. That wasn't enough. Now we don't want to pay you. We're going to force you, no, not force, bully you out into the streets. Isn't that what this was? A bullying of teachers, of 585 teachers into the streets because we refused to take zero. Oh, class size was never on the agenda. It was never part of the contract opener. Read your contract. It became part of it when you decided to pink slip 25 teachers. That's when it became part of it. You wanted to bully us into taking zero. We chose, no, I'd rather not. I need to live here also, and all of the costs are going up. I'm very disappointed in Orlando. Yes, Wendy, I know what you said. He may have 44 years, but this was a bad mistake to choose to put a school district's teachers out on the street. A school district that had never been on strike. I cannot believe that all of you lack the common decency and leadership that was given to you by this community. And now you want us to dial back. There's hurt feelings. You darn Skippy, there's hurt feelings. 14 days, and here's the insulting part. You decided to keep my money. Not only did you make me stay out there for 14 days, that wasn't enough. I'm going to keep your money and pay you with your own money. Matter of fact, I'm going to pay all the Me Too's as well. Thank you, Coach Crittenden. Thank you, Roxanne Ramirez. Thank you, Colleen Hazlitt. Thank you, teachers in New Haven. How disrespectful. You want to show some leadership? Think of how you're going to repair this. Think of what you're going to do. Because I tell you what, come the fall, there's going to be a lot of things you want from us. I'll take a per diem for that. That should give me one of my days back. Think about it. Leadership, it's not easy, but you chose to take that position. So step up to the plate and bat.
Final speaker. No more speakers.
Thank you.
Topic's not on the agenda.
Okay, and what about topics on the agenda?
Yeah, we have 6.
All right, 3
First
minutes.
speaker is Roland Valencia. After Roland Valencia is Lauren Maselli.
It's Villena, just for the correction. Sorry about that. Good evening, members of the New Haven Board of Education. I stand here today to continue to advocate for the solution I have proposed to alleviate this district's financial situation, but allows for a wealth of funding for our schools and allows this district to pay our teachers what they deserve. That proposal is the permanent parcel tax of 0.25% to 0.75% of land value. Member Nishishira, if you want to balance the budget, join an agreement to pass the process of analyzing and enacting this proposal for voter approval, a proposal that could raise millions in permanent funding for our schools and our teachers. Member Wang and Canlis, you can pay teachers what they deserve right now by passing the parcel tax and getting voter approval for it on November 2020. I may not have a bachelor's in public policy or government administration, but I am sure to the best of my abilities that this parcel tax I proposed last meeting can and will raise up to $13.672 million at a cost to the taxpayer of $83 per month. I can tell you that I can afford that, because in my wallet right now, I have enough money to pay that $83 per month tax for the next 7 years. My college account can pay for that $83 a month tax for the next 20 years. So it is affordable even to working class and lower class Americans. We must find a way to solve this district's financial situation while at the same time providing a proper raise for these teachers to make sure that we attract the best talent that we can to this district. And the only way we can raise such a large amount of money legally among Proposition 218 and Proposition, they're 13, sorry, is through the passage of a permanent parcel tax. Oakland Unified School District and San Leandro Unified School District have passed permanent parcel taxes. Orinda Unified School District even passed a higher permanent parcel tax than what I am proposing right now, at $1,000 per year per parcel. So the fact that these districts, that some of them may be even smaller than us, have passed permanent parcel taxes means that with the right community support, with the right transparency, we can pass legislation to get the funding that we need to fix this district situation and pay teachers 7%. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lauren Maselli. After Lauren Maselli is Joe Angeles.
Good evening, board members and district. My name is Lauren Maselli, and I teach 4th grade at Alvarado Elementary School. I have some questions, so pen's ready. I have questions about the NHUSD proposed budget of the next 3 school years, action item 8.1. According to page 2 of the proposed budget, the Me Too clauses for NHAA is in alignment with quote-unquote past practice. Action item 8.6 tonight is to agree to the collective bargaining agreement or Me Too clause for NHAA. A yes vote on this action item will cost $1,470,503 over the course of 3 years. The document certified that the district can afford this agreement with NHAA with budget cuts itemized as necessary. My question is, if you are projected to have a $7 million shortfall in 2021-2022, can you afford this agreement with NHAA? Along with that thought, I question whether you can agree to any other Me Too extensions. CSEA's Me Too clause extension expires after the 2019-2020 school year, or initial clauses in contracts after this point. You can say no to NHAAs. My second question arises from the budget cut of 3 furlough days to administrative/NHAA unit members. The district will therefore save $55,000 a day for the management furlough days. Could we not potentially restore first grade classrooms to low ratios by making manager furlough days 10 days instead of 3? This would result in less than 1 furlough day a month for the next year. When you consider the amount of paid time off district managers currently receive, this seems like a feasible compromise. Third question is about the sale of Cabello. According to pages 8 and 9 of the proposed budget, the sale of Cabello gave the district $2.8 million in revenue for retiree post-employment benefits. There is a remaining $439,580 to use quote-unquote as needed. Why couldn't this be used to make up the 14 days of lost wages to those retiring instead of employees having to work over the summer per the conditions of the collective bargaining unit agreement, if it's as needed? Lastly, I noticed the increase in Kids First rent would bring in an additional $17,000 in revenue. When was the last time we let other agencies bid for the before/after school care slot? In other districts, their before/after school care brings in a significant amount of revenue as their programs run through the summer, while our current program does not. As a prior employee of one such company, I know the opportunity to bid for these positions with school districts were highly competitive and therefore were high-quality programs that competed to bring the district the most revenue while still valuing the financial limitations of those in the community. I ask these questions not because I already have the answers and intend for you to take the same position as me. I ask genuinely attempting to do my part in making this district the best it can be. I would like for my questions to be answered publicly, either during this open session and included in the minutes, or in closed session with discussion communicated openly. I request this because there are undoubtedly others with the same questions and the community deserves access to a response. I am happy to email these questions as well so they can be referenced at a later time. Thank you.
Next speaker, Joe Angeles. After Joe Angeles will be Paula Atlansky.
Good evening, President Cora, members of the board, district staff, teachers in the audience, the classified staff, community members here in the gallery and at home. It's a very difficult place to be in this after you hear the things I just heard, both from the audience as well as the board members. The fact that you kind of tout the things you've done or we need to heal is an interesting place to be, because obviously, like I mentioned to a couple of board members sitting up there, the healing process could start a different way. Unfortunately, it did not. So again, there's much things to do, and I'll have to beg to differ with President Cora. The community is no longer torn, it's focused. And so I say that because now everything's now in the daylight. There's no place to hide anymore. Everyone knows, and because of the great teachers you have before you, the community is now understanding what it means to be activated, empowered in the community. You saw that a couple of weeks ago with your other board member, what that awareness can do. The change we started is going to keep going unless things change. The things you have before you showed you that some things have not changed. And that's what we started back in October. We could have had this problem solved many months ago, but because of the stance this administration took, as well as the board, it was not. The 14 days you just saw, no doubt, we said many times, is this what you really want? And I guess you did. Because obviously it helps kind of solve some budget items, which shows really clearly the mismanagement and failed vision of the leadership of the district, which needs to change. And I suspect that July 1st, a new leader will come in. Hopefully that person can have a different focus and help the board carry out the things you said here tonight. I will say out loud, I want to thank you, Member Chima, for your really courageous and bold step. To step on your own is a hard thing to do, especially as Mr. Nishar said, you should not have done so. But that's my big thing to say, that rather than hide behind bureaucracy, you did what is right. There are many folks in history that have been waiting for the right thing to do, and because of bureaucracy, no one did anything. So I commend you for doing that, and I wish you well on all your folks in helping the community. I say that out loud because others need to understand that as well. Hiding behind bureaucracy and the things you say is only an excuse. And until those excuses are gone, until they're what you need to do for as board members, as leaders, this will never be healed. As one member said at the famous ratification vote, he said, Joe, this should not happen. We should just call this a ceasefire. Because obviously, during this, quote, understanding point, if things do not change, it's going to happen again. None of us want to do that, but you saw the resolve of the 585 teachers said, Joe, we're here. We want to make this change. We're here now. We shall until we have to do it. The board, the community said the same thing. They said in a different way. So I again urge you to really consider your thoughts, the actions you take, and of course the direction is what we wait to see, because again, now everyone is watching. Thank you.
Next speaker is Paula Atlansky. After Paula Atlansky is Lisa Duncanson.
Good evening. I'm a teacher at James Logan High School for 27 years. I'm so grateful that all of you guys showed up today. It's really hard to be here right now. I'm just going to be honest with you. And yet, I'm trying to save you guys some money, so I'm here to do that. One, I wanted to speak about item 9.36 about equidistant grading. But before that, I also wanted to second the revisiting of the Me Too clause for admin, for district managers, capping of medical for all district managers. If we really truly are all in this together, then why are we really not in this together? Because it really doesn't feel that way. If we really are a team and we're working together, then we need to feel the same kinds of opportunities, the same kinds of changes, the same kinds of limits that we all have, okay? So I wanted to come and talk about the equidistant grading because, again, trying to save you guys money because the claim is that we don't have adequate financial reserves, although now it has been mentioned that you've gained about over $4 million off the backs of teachers from lost pay. So there's another $4 million for you in reserve. So I'm wondering why at this time, when it's all about save money, cutbacks, there's consideration for paying for an equidistant grading program that is in no way a necessity for excellent instruction for our students. So that's my question. Any responses, any comments?
So we cannot engage in a dialogue in this session.
Okay, I would like you to confer on this then, because you're the board, and you guys are the boss of the superintendent, as now you've learned throughout this strike. So we'd really like you to take that responsibility seriously, and I want to thank Ms. Chima as well, because I was one of the people that went to your home. You were very gracious, you listened, you took to heart the fact-finding report, and you acknowledged the facts. So thank you very much. The second thing I wanted to mention is I want you to be honest about this whole equidistant, financial investment. Is this just a way for you to kind of actually have it be a gateway move to eventually mandate that all teachers adopt equidistant grading? Is this the backsliding way into it? If so, what's the plan to hear from stakeholders, the teachers who may be encouraged or, let's face it, eventually forced to use equidistant grading? So that's my other question that I would like you to definitely consider, because we can't afford to spend things, recklessly. And if we don't need it, if it's not essential for our students and for excellent teaching, then why are we spending it? Thank you.
Next speaker is Lisa Duncanson. After Lisa Duncanson is Gavin Smith.
Hi, I'm Lisa Duncanson. I teach science at Easton School, and during the strike, I worked as the NHTA communications chairperson. So I was fortunate enough to travel the district and get to hear from teachers and get to hear from a lot of different people during this work. And so I'd like to talk about a contract sort of apart from the person. I'm not discussing this in terms of a personality, but in terms of the contract language. The Chief Academic Officer contract is being presented today. And as you've heard many people say, the Me Too clause is a very questionable element of that contract. I emailed all of you this, so I know you received this information over the weekend. I sent you the highlighted portion of the text that we particularly take issue with. What I see as the largest issue right now is the sort of tone-deaf nature of this contract at this time. So there's a couple things I'd like to address. An article came across my Facebook feed yesterday, which I found very compelling and appropriate. It's called How the Concept of Forgiveness is Used to Gaslight Women. And it talks about the way that we tell women in particular, but I hear it in this room and I heard it from the board statements, that we need to get over it. And that by telling us to sort of get over it and move on, it's a way of taking away our voice. I've been trained in this district to learn about agency, which is my voice and my ability to control my future and my destiny. It's something that I took very seriously when working with my students for 20 years. And what you are hearing in this room, every statement that I heard, is the teachers telling you, we are no longer compliant. We are no longer acquiescing. It makes you uncomfortable, and that's too bad, because it's the truth. So you are going to hear a lot of challenges to things that come up at this board, a lot of challenges that come up with procedures being presented, and I want you to just understand real clearly that is because we have found our agency in the most grueling, disgusting, despicable, torturous circumstances we could have possibly faced. I had literal panic attacks every morning the first 4 days I approached the site for striking. I could not breathe and I had heart palpitations. It took me 4 days to realize what was going on and to say, enough. This is not about my fear. This is about what I want for my students and the direction we're headed. A Me Too clause is completely contrary to that. Another thing that I see throughout the agenda today, noticing something along the lines of 47 consent items, I find disgusting. To me, that's nearing $1 million that you would like to approve without having a public conversation. So as we talk about accountability and transparency moving forward, I think that really needs to be addressed. So I would just like to say you discussed misinformation as being a really big problem during this strike. And I would say, yes, you have misinformed us. You have told lies. You have hidden facts. You have taken contracts down, or this body has taken contracts down from the school board website so we could no longer find them. And so just moving forward, I'd like you to take a quick look at this. And Jennifer, thank you for having these available today. This sticker is going on my car. You'd have to read it in reverse, but it says, in solidarity, May 20th, 2019, New Haven Unified. This is a date we will never forget. We will no longer quiet ourselves in order to make someone else feel better. And Orlando, this does go down in history
After Gavin Smith will be
the mistake you made that will be forever remembered as your mistake.
My name is Gavin Smith. I'm a teacher at James Logan High School. I first want to say that the comments that were made at the beginning, while I believe you guys meant them as your best effort, but it was 14 days late, and from our side, several $1 million short. With regards to leadership, Chima, I want to say thank you. Trustee Chima, thank you for demonstrating leadership. Leadership is not going with the pack and doing the safe thing. It's actually standing up and taking a risk. I appreciate various ones of you, trustees, you had conversations with people. I think that was moments of possible leadership, and I wish you guys would have followed through with that more visibly. With regards to how these meetings go, it feels like we are the subjects and you guys are the kings, and we're coming before you to, my sheep were killed by wolves, and I need your help, can you please? And you just sit there, stone-faced, and we walk away. If you really want partnership and mutual respect, there has to be mutual respect. And there needs to be dialogue. So this idea that you can't answer questions, I know it's uncomfortable. I know you will probably make mistakes. We make mistakes in the classroom answering questions from our students. But I don't think any of you would want me to be a teacher if I treated my students like you treat your public. And so for that, Angelica, for instance, she was up here at first, and she had a prepared statement. It went long. And she wasn't filibustering. She wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I do understand the idea of cutting someone off when they're just going on and on. But it would go a long way to actually listen to people all the way through. The part that I was actually coming up here for was in regards to, I think it's 9.28, the contract approval for Chief Academic Officer. Do I have the number right? And back, I don't recall what meeting it was, but there were some questions that board members had towards the concern that the public brought up over the title of Assistant Superintendent. And I appreciated that at the time for people asking that question. What I would like you guys, if you could do tonight, is to answer that question. Is that Assistant Superintendent title, what happened to that title? To my recollection, it was going to go towards Scott Pisani's title. It might be going on to Derek's title and Annette's title. And in the age of declining enrollment, to use John Mattos's coined term, I don't know why we would need to have that many assistant superintendents. All right, thank you.
Final speaker is Darlene Crittenden.
So, I just wanted to talk about a few things. Going back with the collective bargaining agreements with the top 4 in the district, let's go with the top 3 because the superintendent will be new. 8.6, Heldman's name is on there. You are the one that's telling us we don't have money, yet all I see in this agenda is money, money, money. Those titles, one, we don't need to upgrade anybody's title to make them feel better and to give them more pay. That is ridiculous. Think, people, just think. All you have to do is think. You say public disclosure of these collective bargaining agreements. I am requesting, as well as the community and teachers are requesting, that all contracts be listed on the district website, clickable. There it is, right there. We shouldn't have to run through the woods, over the mountain, cut through grandma's house to get a contract. That is crazy, and it is dishonest. I'd like to also speak on, again, we're talking about we're having money issues, yet I see that we're going to approve a contract to Illuminate for $227,000. I don't know why we need to do that when we have 9.36, which is the Aquatis Solutions, another grading program, which is $25,000. Now, I remember using the Zango. It was called Zango back in the day, and then it moved to Q to grade when I was at the middle school. It worked fine. I don't know why we need to spend this kind of money on programs. And then we have the Komochi's Plush Feely Corp. We're expecting 80 elementary teachers, don't all raise your hands at once, to get this training for $65,000. Board of Education, you are derelict in your duty. You need to think when you're passing through these consent items and voting to accept them. You're telling us we don't have money, yet all I see is spending, spending, spending. And it's on our backs that you're spending. Yes, I know you have our 14 days. You might want to keep it for when you want something, because you are going to pay per diem. If you expect it to happen, that is. I'm going to ask all board members to really think about doing a better job while you're still in your position. I also would like a public response to whether or not we'll be getting these contracts on the website where we can find them easily. instead of having to look everywhere. Thank you, Lori.
That was the final speaker.
Thank you. Moving on to the action items. 8.1, adoption of the proposed budget, for 2019-2020 and multi-year projection for 2020-2021 and 21-22, and approval of resolution number 063-1819, resolution to reflect the commitment of the Board of Education to enact a plan to address any budgetary shortfalls in its multi-year analysis. Ms. Heldman.
Yes, thank you. Members of the board and Superintendent Smith, Annette Heldman, I am your Chief Business Officer. Let me adjust my mic a little bit. So by Ed Code, we have to adopt, like any other school agency, a budget by July 1st of every year. Item 8.1 before you is, as you mentioned, the proposed budget for 1920, and by law, the budget projections for the 2 out years, which are 2021 through 22. So the complete detail, if you have this book, is all in this book. So most of these are required forms by the California Department of Education. These are required supplemental forms and SACS forms. SACS is the state software that we are required to use. So because of this very detailed information that we are required to put together, we actually have a tab that synthesizes, simplifies, and summarizes the highlights of this information. You will find that in tab 2. I refer to it, I call it the executive summary, but in your tab it's actually called proposed budget for 1920 and multi-year projections for 2021 through 22. So highlights of what's in this very heavy, thick book to remember are a few things that I want to mention. Revenue projections that are included in here are based on the May revision. That is the latest budget projection provided to us by the governor. This includes a decline of 300 students, and as you know, part of the chart that we provided, which is available to the public, shows our enrollment from 2010 and 11. And through the year that we are in, we've lost nearly 700 students. It's an average of about 280, and therefore the projection for 1920 is 300. Now, a lot of those will be corrected by the time we get to the CBEDS reporting, or CalPADS reporting. Also of note, which is normally when we do these, we focus on the upcoming budget, but in this one, we actually provided a section that reviews the current year that we are in. And why that's important is because we wanted to note the mid-year reductions that were done in the current year, which we implemented post-second interim, which was presented to you in March. Also of note, another important thing is that the 1920 presented to you, the 1920 proposed budget presented to you includes nearly $3.5 million in reduction. That was the work of multiple meetings and collaborative sessions within district and different in the leadership team to come up with that in order to be able to curtail our spending and be able to balance the 3-year budget, which we are required by law to do. One other important thing, we are now on the fifth year of LCFF. It was expedited, so that's a good thing for us. And I've said this in different platforms. What that means to us, well, that is a good thing, that we got all our money back faster than what Governor Brown planned in terms of the intention of that law, is that beyond 18-19, unless the targets are raised, our revenues are going to be flatlining unless something happens at the state level. So those are the basis of the revenue projections that are in this book. A few other important things that are important to note. The implementation of the recent settlements are not here yet. By end of April, this budget development process was more than, in a manner of speaking, more than half-baked, and therefore a lot of that transpired in the last 2 months were not embedded in here. Now, those are part of the things that are being worked on right now by staff. The retro payments will all be part of the end of June monthly payroll, as well as a mid-payroll sometime in July. So a lot of that work is being put together, and we will see a lot of it in the estimated actuals, unaudited actuals, which will be presented to you in the early part of September. So in this packet also is a board resolution declaring the shortfall that we would need to address by the time we get to 2021 in order to be able to meet our obligations and balance a 3-year budget, again, as required by law. With those reductions or reprioritizing of expenses and operational structure within the budget, this proposed budget for 1920 and multi-year projections reflect a positive certification, contingent, of course, on recognizing and reducing where we need to reduce in the years to come. With that, the staff recommendation by staff is to approve this as presented. 2 notes is that what's next after this, again, I mentioned, would be the unaudited actuals, which is closing of 18-19. And the work that would happen in terms of all the necessary budget adjustments to be presented to you as part of the first interim report, which covers July 1st through the end of October in the new fiscal year. At this point, I can entertain any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Heldman. Any questions?
Sure. I'd like to thank you so much for, this has been one of the clearest budget narratives that I've seen so far. It addresses a lot of the issues pretty clearly. One question that I have when we're looking at the revenue, the revenue table, I noticed a few things. Number one, I see the ADA projection. One of the things that we as a board need to think about is this is where declining enrollment is the multiplier. Then there's the base grant. That is where we have to lobby Sacramento for full and fair funding. Then there's grade span adjustments. There's supplemental. So I'm looking at page 2. The concentration grant right now we're at 0 because I think we've dropped down to like 53%. Do we have any idea of what at least what we think it should actually be? Because right now we don't really know what the actual number is. I know that we do have a demographer that we're employing for the redistricting. Is this a question that we could pose to the demographer to get an idea of what that number should be, and then also put policies in place to ensure that all of our families are filling out all the correct forms to see if we can get as much of those resources to make LCFF work for us? Do we have any ideas on at least a guess of what it should be?
Since the unduplicated pupil count is a component of our students who are either eligible for free and reduced and or are English learners and or are in foster homes and or are migrant ed students, then that number is a reflection of those students put together. Now, one of the things that we've been discussing is, and you actually mentioned it already, in terms of doing a campaign so that our families can really have access and assistance in terms of completing the meal application. So we're going to be launching a campaign in the summer, putting it together so that we can have and provide assistance to families so that they would have what they need and help in terms of completing that form. Because without the form, we won't be able to know who's eligible. So there's more work that's going to be put on that.
So this go ahead.
In addition to the demographer report on the redistricting, we have also included in his scope of work several of the questions the board has been asking for years. So it's going to go beyond just the redrawing of the boundaries. It's going to be looking at declining enrollment, where people are going. We've expanded the scope of work for this group.
Okay. So I think that should probably have, that should hopefully, because the number that we're getting is just the number of people who are filling out the form.
Yes.
Without it being compulsory. And so the other thing that I'd like to learn a little bit more, and maybe this is something that we can maybe talk to the site administrators about, is to figure out why people are hesitant in filling out the form. I don't think we really understand that. I've heard a couple theories, but I'd still love to continue to work on that.
A lot of it is anecdotal. Part of what I'm hearing in our neighboring districts as well is, and you probably know this, the minimum wage escalation. It's the programmed escalation, and one of the things that I've heard as we meet with my counterparts in the county is that there have been families who kind of fallen off from that poverty line, and therefore they will not be eligible if they were eligible before. So there's a lot of different reasons that can be looked into.
Okay. And then also on Fund 14 and Fund 25, these are deferred maintenance and capital facilities. One of the things that I constantly hear about from my daughter's friends when they come and they talk about things at Logan is the bathrooms at Logan. One of the things that I'd like to do is to figure out, and we'll talk about this, I'm going to pull out the consent agenda about the inspection report. You know, there are probably some things that we can do to make those bathrooms, you know, better in terms of maybe updated fixtures or, you know, modular equipment that will allow us to, you know, keep up with vandalism. A few other things as well. It looks like we do have some funds within those funds. What is the process that we go through? This is for the board to start talking about prioritizing those types of building projects.
Do we wait for the consent item, or do we? I mean, I could share some insight.
Okay, it could go in either. I mean, it's about the budget, but you know, we can. Why don't we talk about it now?
Well, we do have a work order system that staff at the site level or different department would put in a work order in terms of if something is not working or if something is defective. What has happened during the recession years, one of the things that was taken away by the state is the funding for deferred maintenance. The money that you're seeing in Fund 14 was actually pre-recession, pre-2008. This district has not, just like any other district, has not been able to make any contribution to that because we lost that matching from the state. What, to our benefit though, we did, as you know, pass Measure M in 2014, and that ballot language actually allows us to take care of some of the deferred maintenance needs. But there are things that may not fall within the realms of the ballot language, and therefore that's when we try to look for other funding, like Fund 14 would be where that would fall. But along with the change pre-2008 in terms of the state recession and a lot of things were taken away from school agencies was actually the requirement of a 5-year plan. So our 5-year plan for deferred maintenance has, if I may say so, has not really been updated to the point just because there's no more state funding for it. But that's not to say we do not address these things because, like I said, we still have the work order system. One of the things that we know is we try to schedule them, and we can, our staff, maintenance or operations, they have their own routes throughout the school year. So a lot of these work would actually be planned. That's why we have a summer deferred maintenance program. For example, recently we actually replaced a lot of what would be considered, you know, old and unsafe picnic tables and picnic chairs. So things like that we try to group and schedule for a summer maintenance program.
Okay, great. I did have one more question, but I'll let the board.
You can ask.
Okay. So we've got some reductions that we still have to identify. One of the things that I'd like to do is figure out a way to involve key stakeholder groups in working together to identify what those reductions are, just as a point of process as we move forward with identifying those reductions.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Any questions from the other members? Yeah, go ahead, Ms.
Just want to understand that on page 2, district negotiations update, it says the district has a Me Too provision with its classified bargaining unit, and I did see that signed in February of this year, and an established Me Too past practice with the management group NHHA. So it's just a past practice, there is no contract.
Well, NHAA is not in the same way that NHTA, and maybe I'll ask Mr. McNamara to chime in the same way that NHTA and CSEA are unions. It's not in that same way. However, they do have an agreement with the district, a separate agreement with the district.
So we do have some kind of memorandum of understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not in the form of a contract, but it's It's an agreement.
It's an agreement, okay. So, is this Me Too clause is a part of that agreement? Not NHA, NHAA, okay. Yeah, right. I did see the whole copy of, I did read that. So, yeah, thank you. I understand. I just want to clarify that part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member Callis?
Yeah, I want to know if this information on this section, when Mr. Matos shares the news, will this be included so people could access the information online?
Which specific information?
Section 2, I believe this is Section 2 on proposed budget 2019-20, and this section.
The entire section?
Just this portion of this portion.
The entire tab?
Yeah.
We could. We usually provide a summary.
But wouldn't it be good to be able to put as much of the information and data so that everybody has access to the information that we have here?
So are you asking for
Just this section on.
proposed budget,
Yeah.
pages 1 through?
To,
It goes all the
10.
way into 10.
10, and then the last one where it has the entire summary.
Yeah. It's already
What
accessible by public. I mean,
this
right
entire
now,
book
I think this entire book should
is
be
on the
there.
web, is on the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. So
and
the
there's
entire
a-
book is there, but then when Mr. Matos shares the news, could he provide a link to this specific portion so that they are able to look at the data?
Sure. Yes. Can I add a note of clarification? This particular section is actually part of the board agenda packet, therefore it's accessible by the public. The entire book, our process is after board adopts this, it will actually, the whole thing will be posted on the website. We just cannot post it until the board has approved
I get it. Okay, thank
So
you.
tomorrow it will be up on the website.
All right. I have another question. Can you clarify for me there's a statement here that says, the board determines reductions needed for 2021 is approximately 6.4 million. That's just if we change nothing as of the printing of
That is correct.
this one.
That is correct.
And that does not include negotiations reductions.
Not, it does not. But like I said, in the body of this report is we will be, the next, two things that are going to be critical. We're going to be closing the financials for 18-19, and we're going to be, after implementing all the retro payments and the cost of the 3-year settlement in our multi-year projection, that could change.
Okay, and then when we do that, can we make that information available?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay. My question pertains to the online document on page 9, Race to the Top District Grant Update.
Page 9.
So it's not on the book. It's actually the, I don't know what page it would be on the book, but this is the attachment that's to the board doc.
Okay.
Oh, so my
have
question,
it.
okay, so the statement that I just want some clarity around is, I'm just going to read that out to you. It's about 2 sentences.
Okay.
At closeout of the grant in 2016, approximately 4.4 million in costs, mostly in certificated staff, were transferred into the general fund. In 2017-18, expenditures were reduced by approximately 600,000, and subsequently in the following years, 2018-2019, a large portion of the remaining costs transferred from the grant into the general fund were either reduced or eliminated. So my question is, how much of that 4.4 that's been transferred into the general fund is still tied to the certificated staff that we currently? I mean, you may not know the number, but
yes,
just
we
off the
might
top-
have to get back with you on that one. But in terms of what this saying, these were the 4.4 transferred from the grant into the general fund, but in 2 years have been reduced or eliminated as part of ending of that grant. So if the question is what else is remaining of the 4.4?
That is still tied to the certificated.
Okay, we would have to get back with you on
Okay.
that one.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Ms. Chima?
It's not a question, but just a suggestion. I think since this book is already on the website after we approve it, can we have a tab for the budget so that people, they don't have to dig into the meetings to find out this? So just take a budget. So then all the 4 or 3 cycles of the budget, then can be people who want to see our budget, the books, so they can see it. So it should be a special tab or something. Have some kind of link on the top. Yeah. So it will be because we are looking into establishing an budget advisory committee, so it will be helpful then as well, so that they can take a look at their budget and find, yeah.
Okay. If no further questions, then may I have a motion and a second to approve the adoption of the proposed budget for 2019-2020 and the multi-year projection for 2020, 2021, and 21-22, and approval of resolution number 063-1819, resolution to reflect the commitment of the Board of Education to enact a plan to address any budgetary shortfalls in the multi-year analysis.
So moved.
Oh, pardon me, so we are just approving the budget, the first item, right, in the action?
Yes.
8.1.
8 point, okay, thank you.
May I have a second to that?
Second.
Okay, discussion? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, 8.2, approval of the Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP, and the Local Control Funding Formula, LCFF, budget overview, and the Every Student Succeed Acts, EXA, federal addendum. Ms. Metzinger.
Hi, good evening, President Corr, members of the board, Superintendent Smith. Tonight we are seeking board approval of the New Haven Local Control Accountability Plan, the Every Student Succeeds Federal Addendum, and the budget overview. As you recall, at last meeting, we held a public forum for any comments, and we received none. So the plan is as stands from last board meeting, and we are seeking your approval.
Thank you. Any questions from the members?
No questions. Thank you so much for sending us the plans ahead of time so that we can read a lot of pages. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else? I just have a general question. In our highlights, LCAP highlights,
yes,
we refer a lot of our data points and we compare it to the state level. Is that just by standard practice? I would like to see if there's any comparison that can be done to the county level. And we talked about this many months ago when we wanted to compare our data and see how we stand against our county schools as opposed to where we are with the state. I don't know if that's even applicable to the LCAP, but especially to that section.
Well, I think we are allowed to, we set our goals, many of them based on the dashboard. And so many of those items are required, so that's why we would compare ourselves to the state, because the California dashboard is a state dashboard. Yeah. That said, for future LCAPs, what we usually do is we show you comparisons to the county when we do our annual update in September. Mm-hmm. And so we don't include it in the LCAP, but we provide greater detail for you at that particular board meeting.
Right. Okay. That's what I was going to explain. The time for the county data comparison is in October.
Right.
When we do the achievement update and you see progress. The LCAP is a state required document.
Right. But even though we have some local variables that we have in the dashboard, even then you wouldn't be able to provide data in here from.
We could, we just haven't done that in the past.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something?
Go for it.
As I understood this one, this is for us to see where we are in the dashboard and see what intervention we could put in place.
Yes.
And how to do that. So this is not the format to compare with the county. And there will be another time when we could do that if we want to. But right now we're just looking at where our strengths are and where we're not in the green and the blues, and see what we could do to provide interventions so we could get there.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I understood it.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the approval of the Local Control Accountability Plan and the Local Control Funding Formula Budget Overview and the Every Student Succeed Act's Federal Addendum?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Moving on to the next item, 8.3, agreement to extend the time period for required public hearings and community outreach and input pursuant to the Election Code Section 10010EC related to the district's transition from at-large to by trustee area election system. Dr. Smith.
Right, as you remember, we had a very short timeline. We had 2 pre-map hearings. Working with MALDEF and our attorneys, we were able to get an extension to 90 days to allow us to have more community input, as well as to have the post-hearing maps drawn. So we have a 90-day window that goes to October 27th rather than the one that would have come up in August.
Okay, which is actually, it works out for us too because we're in the summer, so we'll probably get more feedback in the fall. Any questions from members?
No.
No. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agreement to extend the time period for the required public hearings and community outreach and input pursuant to Election Code 10010EC related to the district's transition from an at-large to by trustee area election system?
Second.
Discussion?
None.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to 8.4, public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement and certificated of the district's ability to meet the costs of the collective bargaining agreement with the New Haven Teachers Association, NHTA. Ms. Heldman.
Good evening once again. Actually, 8.4, 8.5, and 8.6 are of the same nature. We are required by law to publicly disclose before we enter into that collective bargaining agreement to publicly disclose the cost of that agreement and certify that the district can afford it. So these, a lot of the attachments that you see in these packets were all required by the County Office of Education. We've sent it to them for their review. And just this afternoon, we actually received the opinion letter from the county office. And therefore, these are being presented to you for approval. These are for the 3 different employee groups in the district.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the members? No questions? Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
Maybe just share, since they don't have something in front of them.
Okay.
Probably share the information that we're looking at.
Okay, sure. So 8.4 is for the certificated group. You see the attachments, it's a bunch of numbers, but all it is really saying what is your financial condition now and what would it look like? How would in other words, we're having to explain to the county how our multi-year projections would look like once we implement this agreement. I mentioned earlier that these 3 are all of the same nature. It's just for 3 different separate bargaining groups. The costs for these are about $11.6 million. Now, a lot of these, especially on the statutory benefits, are estimated at this point because if any changes, it would probably mostly on the benefit contribution, just because until that is implemented in the system, it's not going to be that exact. So for NHTA, for example, which is 8.4, that estimated cost for this 3-year agreement is about $8.2 million. For the classified group, which is item 8.5, it's about 1.8. I'm giving these amounts because I heard that they wanted to know them. The 8.6 item, which is for the management group, it's about 1.5 over the next 3 years. So
thank you.
So,
any other questions?
Thank you.
No questions. I was wondering that can we have this on our projectors all this information while we are discussing it, so that our audience, they can see it?
We,
Is it, if it's not too hard, I mean, if you can bring those numbers up, then it will help, all of us to understand visually.
It's
No,
not
that's
available
fine.
tonight.
No, not, okay. If it's not possible, then.
well, they are already they are already available to the public.
Yeah, they are available over there, so I understand. So I think in the future, maybe if it's possible, while we are discussing all these things, it's good for our community to understand as well. So if we can display that, we can make the arrangement for the
Any
future
more?
meetings.
Sure, we can, please take that into consideration. Thank you. With that being said, may I have a motion and a sec?
I have another question.
Okay.
There is an Appendix A
Yes.
attached to all of them. And it shows possible reductions.
Yes.
That totals to about 7 million. Maybe people need to know possible reductions as well.
Okay.
In the future, because I know we don't have them right now.
Okay, done? So
Thank you.
may I have a motion and a second to approve the public disclosure of the collective bargaining agreement and certification of the district's ability to meet the costs of collective bargaining agreement with the New Haven Teachers Association?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving on to 8.5, public disclosure of a collective bargaining agreement and certification of district's ability to meet the cost of the collective bargaining agreement and the California School Employee Association, CSEA. Ms. Heldman again.
Again, it's for the same purpose. So
Yeah.
we are required by government code to publicly disclose the cost of this agreement. The classified group has a Me Too, and therefore the same provisions are estimated and calculated and populated in terms of the required documents, according to Assembly Bill 1200.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, with that, may I have a motion and a second to approve the public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement and certification of the district's ability to meet the costs of the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Last action item is 8.6, public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement and certification of the district's ability to meet the costs of collective bargaining agreement with New Haven Administrators Association. Any questions from Ms. Heldman on that one?
Question.
Yes?
I have previously expressed there was a lot of things going on when we were going through the strike, but I did mention that when School Services of California, they provided us our budget kind of, a review, and found out that our administration pay was a little bit out of the standard practice in the industry. So I thought to myself, and I have shared with, I don't know if I shared with you or not, that next time around now, that we need to maybe do something about it so that we are in the industry range. So I know from the School Service of California, our administration cost was 7.2 or something %, and standard was like around 5%, 4.5%, something like that. So, so I thought if it's other board members agree, I know it's a Brown Act and I could not share it before, I have to share it in this meeting. If the other board members, they agree to table it for now, and let's have a closer look at the numbers, that how we spend our money on the administration. And if we can bring it a little bit, under I know it's not going to happen overnight, but let's take a look. But I would like to ask my fellow board members, what do they think about this? My suggestion, and if they can, if they have further anything to add to this viewpoint.
Thank you, Ms. Chima. I don't know if you guys have any other questions for Ms. Heldman before we answer or take action on this. Any other questions?
I guess the question is to Ms. Heldman. If we table this for tonight, what is the impact? What is the impact if we table this tonight?
Well, listen, it is important to remember that there are three groups that work in this district. You have administrators, you have classified, you have certificated teachers. I understand, and please forgive me, Ms. Chima, for saying this, but I know where your heart is. But to curry favor with one group over another and divide this community is unfair. I don't care what you think, Ms. Chima. It is very unfair. It is very unfair, Ms. Chima, to pit one group against the other. And so, if you wanted to do that, there was other opportunities for this conversation we had in a special session. But we have administrators, we have teachers, we have classified employees, and all are important to make this district work.
Okay, so I don't know if that answers your question, Lance.
Can
No,
I answer? Oh, let Annette answer his question.
Well, you will not have an agreement with one group. I mean, in terms of that.
I think Lance's question is, what will be the impact if we don't make decision tonight on this one? I'm not saying that we're not. I'm just saying what will be the impact.
I don't want to misspeak because this really falls under employee agreements, but we have administrators who are 12 months, so without approving this, they will not have an employment contract. I guess that would be one of the things that I could think of.
I would like to hear what she's saying. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think.
I have
Jeff
questions. I'm just wondering how many the pupils will be affected as well, what's the impact?
There are 90 management positions in the district.
Members, there are 90
50,
members.
There are 50 who are certificated. There are 40 who are considered, even less than 40, classified. And then we have people like Ms. Valdez, Ms. Gina, Ms. Madhu, who are confidential. But they're all in the management group, so there's a total of 90. But the certificated, the principals, the assistant principals, the people who work here, it's a total of 40. It's a total of 50, I'm sorry. But the grand total are 90 people.
Okay.
But as I understand it, NHUA is not include the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, am I right?
They are independent.
Those are contracted employees.
Okay, yeah.
So just to repeat that, 40 of those are the principals and assistant principals.
No, 50, about 50 of those.
About 50, and then the others are certificated and classified.
We have social workers, we have Kids First people who make up the other 40. Again, we have confidential employees. So when you lump them all together, it looks like, oh, we have 90 people in management, but they're different classifications.
So I have previously asked for the organizational chart updated, but I know that we were going through so many things that it did not happen. But because we are going through the budget crisis, I would definitely take a look at the job descriptions and the positions we have and where they're serving. So it will give us, we have always taken the things at face value from the district side, but right now we are in a very different time period. So I think it's my responsibility just to take a look. That does not mean that, I will not approve it. It's not that. But we owe it to ourselves to take a hard look and review the things that where we need to make a little bit of adjustment, if there is any room for that. So, but it depends upon the fellow board members. I'm the one board member, so if they, it's up to you, if you want to move it or you want to keep it, it's up to you. It's up to you.
So we'll have to probably take a vote on it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Chiba. If there's no further questions, may I have a motion and a second to approve the public disclosure of a collective bargaining agreement and certification of the district's ability to meet the costs of the collective bargaining agreements with the New Haven Administrators Association?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
No, if there is no second, then its motion is.
She's-
I second it.
sorry.
Is there a
Sorry.
discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda items. Are there any items from the members? Are there any items from members you have questions or comments you would like to pull for separate vote? Are there, on the consent agenda, are there any items you would like to have pulled for a separate vote?
Just a second.
a discussion.
Not for separate vote, but for a discussion.
Okay.
913,
9.15,
13,
okay.
and 48.
Sorry, repeat the second one?
48, 9.48.
13 and 40.
Okay. Will that be it, Member Nishira?
That's it, yes.
Okay, Member Wong, do you have any you would like to pull or have comments on?
Yes, and then you're looking for number. Why don't you come back to me? Then
Okay,
looking
Member
for
Chima?
numbers, you win, yeah.
9.36.
Would that be the only one?
33.
9.33?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, 9.41
Okay.
and 9.48.
Okay, where do you have 9.48? Okay.
Yeah, I know, but just wanted me to.
Okay.
Where is the memo? about the bargaining?
9.51.
Does that cover all of them?
That's it.
Okay, Member Canlis? Okay. And I had, let me see which ones I had to pull. Well, I guess I can go ahead and ask them as they come up. So let's start with 9.13. And that is,
Oh, okay, so that was for Chief Business Officer Heldman, and that is the delegation of powers and agents for fiscal year 2019-20. I understand this to be largely procedural, but I just want some clarification. What is the impact of business operations if we don't pass that resolution?
Thanks for asking. You actually have, in this time of year, we do have a lot of routine board items that are presented to you. As you know, we don't have board meetings in July, and there's a lot of work that need to be done. Part of what the impact of this would be so that we can continue conducting business. A lot of this, though, is when you come back, everything still needs board approval, but having this delegation of authority will not slow any project down, especially when we are at the mercy of different agencies at the state. So you will notice a lot of these routine matters that we do in June for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you.
thank you. Let's move on to 9.33. I think that was Ms. Chima.
Yeah.
Is that me?
I just want to make sure, I just want to know that if this training is mandatory or is volunteer for the paraprofessionals, and how will we measure the progress in this Kamochi's Plashvili Corporation?
Kamochi's is professional development on social emotional learning for our kindergarten students. Teachers at Kitayama Elementary have been using this program successfully this year. And so when we wrote the SSAE grant, part of the grant was to provide professional development for staff on PBIS strategies, social emotional learning strategies, and so we're using grant funds to provide that professional development for kindergarten teachers. The teachers at Kitayama really enjoyed the curriculum, saw good results with students, and so they thought it would be useful for teachers throughout the district.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we can just go back to 9.18, I believe it's Ms. Heldman. On the resolution number 054, it's the contract with the city management services for crossing guard services.
That's pretty standard.
What I wanted to understand was, if I recall correctly, there were some agreements with the city where we would absorb the cost of the crossing guard services, and if there were SROs that the city had paid for, and now that we no longer have that service, is the city taking any ownership of or partnering with us on the crossing guard services?
I don't think an agreement was made to that effect. I mean, it used to be many moons ago that the city and the district actually split the cost for crossing guards. It was due to a state grant. I can't remember the name of the grant, but that was in the 90s. Part of an agreement or a trade-off, I believe, that happened many moons ago is that the city absorbed most of the cost of the SRO, and the district absorbed the full cost of the crossing guards, and that is still the model that we are in.
Okay. For some reason, my understanding was that now that SRO was no longer being a shared service, that they would maybe take some ownership of that as well. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next one is 9.36. I believe it's Ms.
That's
Sheena.
mine, yes. So my question is there any other district, or if there is, how many are using this equidistance grading policy? So this is the first time I've heard about it.
So actually, last spring, we did a board study session on the new grading guidelines that we wanted to adopt in the district. And so the Grading and Assessment Task Force has been working on this for several years now. And at the secondary level, what we were looking at was the impact of a zero. And what we want to make sure is that all grades have equal value. When given a zero, a student if you're going on a 0 to 100% grading scale, a zero can have a significant impact and can actually count as 5 Fs as opposed to 1 F, because you go from 100% A to a zero. The average of an A and an F should be a C in an equidistant grading policy. But in the current way that some teachers are grading, not all teachers, a zero can have an impact of essentially 5 Fs. And so after research review and several years of work, the Grading and Assessment Task Force has been implementing equidistant grading at the middle schools, at Conley, and they started a pilot this year at Logan. Those teachers felt that if we had our student information system, Equitas Q, designed so that it was set up to manage equidistant grading, that would be helpful in moving these grading guidelines forward.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I remember there was some conversation about that before. So my next question was that, is there any other districts that they have used this strategy, or are we the first ones? Or?
No.
We're not the first ones.
Okay.
No, because this was based on research.
I see. So, so how about this software, or this mechanism will talk to our regular grading policy software. So is it seamless, or is there any bugs in it, or?
Well, so they're writing code to manage our current SIS so they can do this. So they're working on code on the back end, and that's what this cost is for.
I see. So that cost will come from the general fund, or is this a special grant for that?
This is coming from the LCAP.
LCAP.
This year's LCAP.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, 9.41, disposal of surplus and obsolete items.
I know this is a routine item. Every year this thought comes to my mind that if we let our community members know that these things are obsolete, they're available for the community use. I don't know if there is any procedure available, if we can even do that. I don't know if it's legal or not.
After you, now this one is for 1819.
Right.
For the beginning of the year, we would
Yeah.
bring you that resolution. Once you approve that resolution, we actually have to advertise it or post it, I believe for at least 30 days to give the public that information, and if any public is interested. And after that 30-day by statute, then we can recycle, or however the most economic way that we can do. A lot of it actually goes to the local recycling company, but we do have that procedure because we are required by law to follow that procedure.
So there are two resolutions. One is 9.41, which is for the last year. You have the list of all the items. And there is another agenda item which is asking for this year moving forward to have that the list compiled. So you just mentioned that there's a 30 days period that you have this list. So 30 days starting from when? So this list, the one 9.41, are these items already somewhere in our warehouse, or where are these?
No, we don't know what those items are. It actually happens throughout the year. So when we get, for example, textbooks that may be obsolete or that may no longer be used, we would get that list from that department, and that list would be posted in a public place for 30 days.
So my real question is, if I want to let some community members know, hey, there are books here if you want to take them, when should I tell them? So when is the time?
I would get back with you on the actual procedure.
Okay.
I mean, I'll have to talk with Madhu, but they do follow those procedures because we have to. We are required by law to follow those procedures.
Thank you.
Okay, 9.48.
This is actually probably more for Jason, but I want to understand a little bit more about the methodology for the inspection, if you're welcome. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to kind of understand how that is actually compiled, and any kind of standards that are used to fill that form out.
It's basically a standard that's already set forth by the state.
Okay.
So we verify per state mandated procedures. So we verify, there's a certain sets that we follow. There's a certain guideline. There's 15 areas that we visually verify if it's up to par or good or it needs repair. That's how we do it. It's mandated by the state.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is because if I look at your report, then everything looks like it's fine. When I do talk to, Logan students as a good example, I get a very different story. So I guess the question is, like, how do we marry that reality with what we're seeing here? Again, this is something that we should probably prioritize just in the sense of basic services, making sure that our facilities are clean and modern.
Sure, and as I spoke to you earlier, this is a snapshot of one day as we do it. We clean and maintain on a daily basis. As I don't know on your conversations and what people have said to you, but it could be that particular day that area was dirty. We maintain it. We use obviously our work order system. We repair, we maintain, we use preventative maintenance. We set out every year. Like this year, we'll do some roofing projects. Last year, we replaced a lot of picnic benches that were in disarray. Following year, we'll probably do some asphalt work. It's an ongoing process throughout the years.
Yeah, and I said, like I said, the data I'm getting is anecdotal, so it may not match up to but I've heard things like the hand dryers don't work. A lot of times they're missing seat covers, soap, toilet paper. those types of things. So even if there's a way that we can kind of figure out from a facility standpoint, how do we incorporate that feedback? How do we make it so that a student can report to facilities in real time that there's something?
That's already put in place. We've already spoke with it. The way it works is staff is to inform my department, and we maintain and we replace, or we have custodial staff. Obviously, staff is a lot smaller than it used to be. So we do maintain, we have people managing, cleaning restrooms daily. I mean, again, there's 4,000 people at Logan, 4,000 students. We got a staff of 3 or 4 cleaning the restrooms. Okay. So we are maintaining them, we are doing it. Staff is supposed to call, our staff goes and maintains and cleans.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Before you leave, I just want to clarify something on the same line. Regarding daily maintenance, such as cleanliness of a place, that if that is not happening, that needs to be reported.
Correct.
To the whoever is the administrator in that school.
Usually reported to the site.
Right, and that would be a custodial issues
Correct,
at that
and
point.
then they put in a work order and when.
If it's a facility problem, i.e. the toilet is not working, then they need to put a work order for it to be fixed on a regular
Usually
basis.
if it's just
It needs to
toilet
be
paper out.
reported, right?
Yes, correct.
Right. There's a difference between just needing to put toilet paper.
Correct.
That needs to be placed right away on that day, on that time, versus something broken that needs to be placed for a work order and need to be fixed. So in relation to your questions, we're looking at this right here. I guess the question is, what constitute a good rating versus not good rating in general?
Because I saw all goods.
Right.
That's
Most of them are 98, 96%.
If you read it, it's basically on
I'm
a
looking at all
scale.
the schools right now, yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, good rating goes from 80%, I believe, or 80 to 95, 99, then it becomes excellent after that. It's a sliding scale. So it depends on if you look at the full report in there, it's a generalization.
Right, I'm looking at the
Correct.
percentage of what classified as 99 to 100%, or what that is, and so on. So I guess the question or the summary is that if on that given day that bathroom was not clean, it needs to be reported so that it could be clean.
Right.
But if something is broken, it needs to be reported, so a work order could be placed in fixing that, so that it becomes categorized as one of these.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
I
Do you have a comment on this one?
Yes,
Okay.
I mentioned it too. So, because our agenda is so heavy today, going back and forth is taking me. I might have missed some of your conversation, but because this information was, to me, was incomplete. So for me to approve it, I don't know what you have written, it's right or wrong. So I searched on the CDE website, and there is a template. And my recommendation moving forward will be that you add pages from 1 to 5 so that the board member, they understand what we are talking about in this report. And 5 and 6, they need to be repeated for each school site so that we have better understanding of your inspection report.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a template on the CDE.
Yes, I forwarded it all to Madhu.
Right. You added only page number 6. I mean, how somebody can find out only on the page number 6, how we can evaluate that.
Going forward, I will make sure when Madhu
So,
uploads it, we will put all 6 pages on there.
Yeah, so I forgot, I also mentioned that if there is a facility is not lack cleanliness or whatever, can they file the Williams complaint as well? So we need to educate the community. If they see something wrong, sometimes they're so upset or whatever, they can get this Williams complaint and filed so that, it can be fixed fast.
Okay. Thank you. Good comments. And then.
One more, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you that usually when we have our consent agenda item, we don't go to the number 10, but I have something under item number 10. Just want to remind you. Discussion and action on items removed from the consent agenda.
Yeah, we'll discuss that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
let's
Thank you.
go with the 9.51, and I think you may have one, Mr. Wong. But let's go with 9.51 first. And that was also yours, Ms. Chima.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I know they have mentioned some of the things, pennies, so to speak, that we have planned to freeze all these expenses. So I know we have talked about the Budget Advisory Committee, I think, with the moving forward the new superintendent. So we need to work on that so that Budget Advisory Committee can take a look at the freezes or cuts or wherever we need to work on our budget. That's my comment.
Okay, and I think Mr. Wang wanted to add something.
I have one and have a question for Lisa regarding the
Can you tell me what number?
929.
9.29.
Can I add something for 9.48? The FIT, the facility inspection tool. One of the things that we could possibly do, because our staff at sites and departments are trained and they access the work order system. I'm not sure how students are informed in terms of how they report something, because they probably would be the ones who would, find something in the student restroom. So I think that communication could also help, so that students can then tell the office manager or, whoever at the school site that could do that as well. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, during the recession years, we actually laid off a lot of our maintenance crew. We haven't restored them to the level that they used to be. Part of that is we're trying to balance that with updates of our fixtures and facilities. For example, we did a lighting upgrade district-wide. We're about to embark on upgrading the very, very old HVAC systems. So we haven't restored to the level that we were in terms of the classified maintenance crew, and that also adds to our limitation. But at the same time, like I said, we're hoping to balance that with newer systems, updated systems, so that they won't need maintenance. And that's kind of how we are, making that work. But I think one thing that we could quickly do is to have partner with our site principals and say, make sure the students know to report to the custodian or to report to the office manager if they see something that's irregular or defective. Just wanted to add that.
I think Mr. Wong had a question on 9.29, which is the approval of the updated courses at James Logan High School, Fire Technology. Oh, sorry, Ms. Metzinger.
Yeah, I have a question is, how long we have a relationship with the school district with TVM? Do we continue the MOU or this new MOU?
No, I think you're talking about a different one.
29.
No,
yeah.
they have changed remember agenda items they changed in the new ones. So it's 9.31.
Sorry, except
9.31 is what you're referring to.
They modified
Right.
all the
3-1.
It's MOU, yeah.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry, I was looking at A to G.
Yeah, we're in
Okay.
the round numbers, yeah.
That's what I thought. 9.31, which
Yeah.
is the approval of the MOU with the village method.
Yes.
Okay, and is this a continued MOU or this a new one?
This is a new one for next year.
Okay, do we have the MOU with them before? And, yeah, okay, do we have those kind of data, for example, like the last couple of years, how many students we served, and what is the result? I think basically this is for the African American students.
Yes.
And this is good for the help narrow the gap for the achievement. That's very good. And do we have some data to follow up and we spend the money and the result?
I don't have the data with me now, but I
Sure.
can provide it for you under
Okay.
BC.
I just ask you, and for your evaluation for this program, is this good or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and
Okay.
the program has strong community support. We were just looking at the data from this year, and we surveyed students as a part of our annual survey, and we found that it has similar results to other programs. Students feel, one of the things that was most highly rated was that students sense of agency, of self, was stronger after participating in the village method. So their ability to advocate for themselves was much stronger. We don't have the data yet for this year because we're still waiting for our SBAC results.
Yeah.
But we can pull some data for you over the last couple of years.
Last couple of years would be great. And I will also ask you, do we have a separate program for the Latino community, Latino students as well?
We have a program called the Puente Program
Yes.
at James Logan High School that serves primarily Latino students.
Okay, do we still continue to work with them and the data as well?
Yes.
Okay, I need those data, and if it is good, we should continue to support it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, are there any other items we would like to have pulled out for a separate discussion or vote?
9.552, 53, 54, 55.
Oh, my God.
No, 54, up to 54. 3 items.
Okay, can you repeat those again?
9.52, 53, 54.
52, 53, and 54, okay.
Yeah, for me, it looks like because we have the action items and now they are in the agenda, consent agenda items, so is there any difference or? Can you
That's
explain,
Mr.
Derek?
McNamara.
I see. Thank you. They can remain on the.
Okay. So are there any items that you would like to have pulled for a separate, or items that you have removed from the consent agenda for a separate vote?
No.
Can they all stay?
They can all stay.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items 9.1 through 9.56?
I move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. With no further business in front of the board, this meeting is adjourned.
No, I asked you on number 10. I had something.
Sorry, I asked you, which item did you want
I knew
removed?
that. I knew that.
Okay,
You
we
forget.
open
That's
our
why I
meeting, so
reminded
which
you.
one did you want?
So agenda item number is 10, discussion and action on items removed from the consent agenda item. But under this, I would like to have a favor, President Kaur and my fellow board members. There is a provision to rectify your vote for 8.6. If you can bring that for the voting purposes again, so that I have the intention to change my vote.
So you're asking to revote on that?
Yeah, if you can ask the move, 8.6 move and second, and then vote again, then it will be, I want to change my vote. There is a provision for that.
I don't know what the provision would be. Lori, do you have any clarification on how to go about that?
Okay, then leave it there then. Leave it as it is then.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.